Fear of failure stops most people from becoming who they truly want to be. Think about it. How many times have you had an amazing idea, but then that voice in your head said, "What if it doesn't work? What if people laugh at me? What if I waste my time and energy?" And just like that, poof, the idea vanishes. The opportunity disappears, and you stay exactly where you've always been. But what if I told you that in just 28 minutes a day, you could completely erase this fear, not manage it, not cope with it, but actually remove it from your life? Would you be interested? Because that's exactly what I'm going to show you how to do. The fear of failure isn't something you were born with. It's something you learned, and anything that can be learned can be unlearned. Right now, in this moment, you have everything you need to transform your relationship with failure forever. When you feel afraid of failing, what's really happening? Your body tenses up, your breathing gets shallow, your heart beats faster, you start to sweat. This is your body getting ready for danger, but here's the interesting part. There is no actual danger. There's only the thought of danger, the thought of what might happen if you try something and it doesn't work out. So your body responds to a thought as if it were reality. This happens because your body doesn't know the difference between what's happening in your outer world and what's happening in your inner world. If you think about something stressful enough times, your body will produce stress chemicals as if that thing were actually happening. Now, here's where it gets tricky. When you feel the uncomfortable feelings, what do? Most people try to avoid them. You back away from the opportunity, you stay in your comfort zone, and when you do that, your mind says, "See, I protected you from danger." So the next time an opportunity appears, your mind will create the same fear response. But there's something your mind doesn't understand. Failure isn't dangerous, failure is information. Failure is feedback, failure is your greatest teacher. Think about a baby learning to walk. The baby stands up, wobbles, and falls down. Does the baby think, "Well, I guess walking isn't for me. I'll just crawl for the rest of my life"? Of course not. The baby gets up and tries again and again and again until walking becomes natural. What if you approached your goals with the same mindset as that baby? What if instead of seeing failure as something to fear, you saw it as a necessary step towards success? When you fail at something, you haven't really failed. You just found one way that doesn't work, and now you know not to try that specific approach again. You're actually closer to success than you were before. Think about this. Every successful person you admire has failed more times than you can count. The difference between them and everyone else isn't talent or luck. It's their response to failure. They get curious instead of discouraged. They ask, "What can I learn from this?" instead of saying, "I'm not good enough." Now, let's talk about the power of where you place your attention. Your reality is created by what you focus on. If you constantly think about how you might fail, guess what's likely to happen? You notice every little mistake, every tiny setback, and your fear will grow stronger. But what happens when you focus on what you want to create instead of what you're afraid might happen? Everything changes. When you wake up in morning, what's the first thing you think about? For many people, it's all the problems they need to solve that day. All the things that might go wrong, all the ways they aren't enough. And with each of these thoughts, they are programming their day for struggle before it even begins. What if instead you took just a few minutes each morning to focus your attention on the person you want to become, the goals you want to achieve, the life you want to create? This isn't wishful thinking. It's mental rehearsal, and it's incredibly powerful. Your mind doesn't distinguish between something you're vividly thinking about and something you're actually experiencing. This is why professional athletes use visualization. They see themselves making the perfect shot, running the perfect race, executing the perfect play over and over in their minds. And when the moment comes to perform, their bodies know exactly what to do because they've already practiced it countless times in their minds. You can use this same technique to overcome your fear of failure. Here's how. Set aside just 5 minutes each morning. Close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths to calm your mind and body. Then see yourself taking action toward your goals with confidence and ease. See yourself encountering obstacles and moving past them with grace. See yourself achieving what you set out to do. Do this consistently, and something amazing starts to happen. Your mind begins to look for opportunities instead of threats. It begins to notice solutions instead of problems, and gradually the fear of failure loses its grip on you. But there's more to this process than just visualizing. You also need to change how you feel. Your thoughts create your feelings, and your feelings create your actions. Most people live in survival emotions like fear, worry, frustration, and doubt. These emotions are useful when there's actual danger, but they're not helpful for creating the life you want. To truly transform, you need to practice feeling the emotions of your future success. Now, confidence, excitement, gratitude, wonder, joy, these elevated emotions send a signal to your body that success is already happening. And your body responds accordingly. How do you practice an emotion you don't currently feel? By remembering times when you did feel it, or by thinking about things that naturally create that feeling in you. For example, if you want to feel confident, remember a time when you felt completely sure of yourself. Maybe it was giving a presentation that went well, or mastering a skill, or standing up for something you believed in. Recall that memory in vivid detail, what you saw, heard, and felt. Let that feeling of confidence fill your body again. Do this daily, and you'll start to notice that confidence becomes more accessible to you in situations where you previously felt fear. Now, let's get practical. Here's a simple 28-minute daily routine that will help you delete your fear of failure. First 5 minutes, sit quietly with your eyes closed, focus on your breathing. Notice any thoughts about failure or inadequacy and simply let them pass by without judging them or yourself. The next 8 minutes, recall a time when you felt truly capable and confident. Relive that memory in detail. Feel the emotions in your body. Amplify them until they feel stronger than any fear or doubt. Next 10 minutes, visualize yourself taking action toward your goals with ease and confidence. See yourself encountering challenges and moving through them skillfully. See the successful outcome of your efforts. Final 5 minutes, write down 3 specific actions you can take today that move you closer to your goals, no matter how small they seem. That's it. Just 28 minutes. But if you do this consistently day after day, you'll begin to rewire your relationship with failure completely. Now, I need to warn you about something important. When you start this practice, you might actually feel more uncomfortable at first. This is normal and actually a good sign. It means you're disrupting old patterns. Your mind and body are used to operating in a certain way. And change doesn't always feel pleasant initially. You might notice more resistance, more doubt, more urges to go back to your comfort zone. This is the point where most people give up. They think, this isn't working, I still feel afraid, but what's really happening is that your system is recalibrating. Think about it like cleaning out a closet. When you first decide to organize that messy closet, what happens? It gets worse before it gets better. You pull everything out, create piles, make decisions about what to keep and what to let go of. An observer walking by might think you're making a bigger mess, but you know that this temporary chaos is necessary for creating lasting order. The same principle applies to rewiring your relationship with failure. Old thought patterns and emotional responses need to be brought to the surface before they can be released. So if you feel uncomfortable, remind yourself, this is not a sign that I'm doing something wrong. This is evidence that I'm creating meaningful change. Another challenge you might face is consistency. We live in a world that's constantly trying to distract us, to pull our attention in 1,000 different directions. Finding 28 minutes each day to focus transforming your inner world might seem difficult at first. This is where creating a non-negotiable appointment with yourself comes in. Schedule these 28 minutes. At the same time each day, treat this appointment as seriously as you would a meeting with the most important person in your world, 'cause it is. This is a meeting with your future self, the version of you that has moved beyond the fear of failure. Let me tell you about someone who used this exact process. There was a person who spent years dreaming of starting their own business. They had the skills, the knowledge, and even a unique approach that could help many people. But every time they got close to taking action, the fear of failure would paralyze them. What if no one wants what I'm offering? What if I invest all this time and money and it doesn't work out? What if I look foolish? The thoughts played on repeat in their mind, keeping them stuck in a job that drained their energy and limited their potential. Then they committed to this 28-minute daily practice. At first it felt awkward, uncomfortable. Their mind kept wandering to all the ways things could go wrong, but they persisted. After about 2 weeks, something started to shift. They noticed they were having more ideas about how their business could work instead of all the ways it could fail. They started taking small actions, researching domain names, sketching out service offerings, mentioning their plans to trusted friends. 3 months into the practice, they had launched their business. Was everything perfect? Of course not. There were challenges, setbacks, and plenty of moments when the old fear tried to creep back in. But now they had tools to work with that fear instead of being controlled by it. Within a year, they had replaced their old income and was helping dozens of clients. More importantly, they had proof that they could face their fears and move forward anyway. What made the difference? They stopped waiting to feel unafraid before taking action. Instead, they built the habit of taking action alongside their fear, knowing that each step would make the next one easier. You can do this too. In fact, you're already starting just by listening to these words and considering a new approach to failure. Here's something else to consider. Your fear of failure isn't really about failure at all. It's about what you think failure means about you. People consciously believe that if they fail at something, it means they are a failure. This fundamental misunderstanding causes enormous suffering. Your actions can fail, your attempts can fail, your efforts can fail, but you cannot fail. You are not your outcomes. You are the awareness that observes those outcomes and decides what to do next. When you truly understand this distinction, failure loses its sting. It becomes nothing more than useful information on your path to mastery. Think about the last time you tried something and it didn't work out as you hoped. How much of your discomfort came from the actual outcome, and how much came from the story you told yourself about what that outcome meant? For most people, it's the story that causes the suffering, not the outcome itself. This is why mindfulness is such an important part of overcoming fear of failure. When you practice observing your thoughts without immediately believing them or identifying with them, you create a space. And in that space, you have the power to choose a different response. Instead of "I failed, so I'm a failure," you can think that approach didn't work. What can I learn from this? What might work better next time? Instead of "I'll never be able to do this," you can think "I haven't figured out how to do this yet, but I'm gathering valuable information with each attempt." This shift in perspective changes everything. It transforms failure from something to fear into something to use. Now, all of this inner work is essential, but at some point you need to take outer action as well. The fear of failure keeps many people stuck in endless preparation mode. They tell themselves, "I'll start when I'm ready, when I have more information, when the timing is better, when I feel more confident." But here's the truth. You will never feel completely ready. The timing will never be perfect, and confidence comes from taking action, not from thinking about taking action. What's one small step you could take today toward your goal? Something so small that your fear of failure can't reasonably object. Maybe it's making a phone call, sending an email, writing the first paragraph, buying the domain name, taking a class. Whatever it is, do it today. Then tomorrow take another small step. These tiny actions might seem insignificant on their own, but they create momentum. And momentum is one of the most powerful forces for overcoming fear. Each time you take action despite feeling afraid, you're sending a powerful message to yourself. My commitment to growth is stronger than my fear of failure. Over time, this message becomes a belief, and that belief becomes a foundation for remarkable achievement. This is where many people misunderstand what taking action really means. They think action has to be big, dramatic, and immediately visible to others. But the most powerful actions often look insignificant from the outside. Consider the person who wants to become a writer but fears failure. Their first action might be opening a blank document and writing a single sentence. That's it, just one sentence. From the outside, this looks like almost nothing, but that small action changes everything on the inside. It proves that taking action is possible despite the fear. The next day, maybe they write 2 sentences, then a paragraph, then a page. None of these actions would impress anyone watching from the outside. But inside, a transformation is happening. The fear of failure is losing its grip, one tiny action at a time. This approach works because it bypasses your fear response. Your mind can't reasonably object to actions so small they seem almost meaningless. But these meaningless actions accumulate, creating both external progress and internal change. I call this sneaking past the bouncer. Imagine your fear of failure as a bouncer standing guard outside the club of your potential. This bouncer is big, intimidating, and determined to keep you out. If you try to push past forcefully by taking huge, scary actions, the bouncer pushes back harder. But if you take actions so small, the bouncer doesn't even notice. You can slip past the defenses. By the time your fear realizes what's happening, you're already inside dancing with possibility. Another powerful concept is what I call failure quotas. Instead of trying to avoid failure, what if you actually aimed for a certain number of failures? This might sound crazy, but it works remarkably well. For example, set a goal to be rejected 5 times this month, or to have 10 people say no to your idea, or to try 15 approaches that don't work. When you do this, something fascinating happens. Failure becomes a sign of progress rather than something to avoid. Each rejection, each no, each unsuccessful attempt becomes a badge of evidence that you're taking action, learning, and moving forward. Many successful people use this approach. They don't measure their progress by successes alone, but by their willingness to risk failure. They know that the person who fails the most often also succeeds the most often simply because they are taking more shots. What would change if you started celebrating your failures instead of hiding from them? What if at the end of each week you could proudly say, "I failed 7 times this week. I'm really making progress." Let's talk about environment for a moment. Not just your physical environment, though that matters too, but environment of influences around you, the people you spend time with, the content you consume, the conversations you participate in. Many people try to change their relationship with failure while surrounding themselves with influences that reinforce their fear. They spend time with people who are also afraid to take risks. They consume news and social media that highlight disasters and failures. They engage in conversations focused on why things won't work. If you truly want to transform your relationship with failure, you need to carefully curate your environment. Seek out people who have a healthy relationship with risk and failure. Read books and listen to talks by those who have failed repeatedly on their path to success. Engage in conversations about possibilities and growth. Your mind is constantly absorbing cues from your environment about what's normal, what's expected, and what's possible. Make sure those cues align with where you want to go, not where you've been. Another powerful practice is keeping a failure journal. This might sound counterintuitive, but stay with me. Each time you experience what feels like a failure, write it down. Then answer these questions. What specifically happened? What did I learn from this experience? How can I use this information to improve my next attempt? What strength or quality did I demonstrate in facing this challenge? This simple practice transforms failures from sources of shame into sources of growth. It helps you extract the value from every experience, especially the difficult ones. After doing this consistently, many people report that they actually become eager to fail because they know each failure brings valuable lessons that move them closer to success. Now, as we come to the final part of our time together, I want to talk about something that might be the most important element of all, your identity. How do you see yourself? Are you someone who takes risks or someone who plays it safe? Are you someone who learns from setbacks or someone who gets discouraged easily? Are you someone who persists despite obstacles or someone who gives up when things get hard? The way you answer these questions shapes your actions far more powerfully than any technique or strategy I could share with you. The good news is that your identity isn't fixed. You can intentionally reshape how you see yourself through consistent practice and reflection. This is where your daily 28-minute routine becomes truly transformative. As you visualize yourself moving confidently toward your goals, as you practice feeling the emotions of achievement and growth. As you take small actions consistently, you're not just changing your behavior, you're changing your identity gradually. The person who was afraid to fail becomes the person who uses failure as fuel. The person who hesitated becomes the person who acts decisively. The person who doubted becomes the person who believes. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It happens day by day, choice by choice, moment by moment. But when you look back after 3 months, 6 months, a year of consistent practice, you'll hardly recognize the person you used to be. So here's my challenge to you. Commit to this 28-minute practice for the next 30 days. Not forever, just 30 days. See what happens. Notice how your relationship with failure begins to shift. And opportunities that once seemed frightening begin to look exciting. Notice how your actions begin to align with your aspirations, and each day ask yourself, who am I becoming through this practice? Let the answer to that question pull you forward when your old patterns try to pull you back. Remember, fear of failure is not a permanent condition. It's not a character trait. It's a learned response that can be unlearned. You have everything you need right now to begin that process. In just 28 minutes a day, you can literally rewire your neural pathways. You can create new emotive responses. You can develop new habits of thought and action. You can become someone who sees failure not as something to fear, but as a necessary step on the path to extraordinary achievement. The fear of failure has already taken enough from you. Opportunities missed, gifts unshared you inexperienced. It's time to take back your power. It's time to step fully into the person you're capable of becoming. When future historians write the story of your life, let them write about this moment. The moment when you decided that fear would no longer determine your choices. Let them write about how everything changed when you committed to those 28 minutes a day. Let them marvel at how such a seemingly small decision created such enormous results. Think about someone you deeply admire, someone who has achieved remarkable things in their field. Now consider this. They felt fear too, they doubted themselves, they wondered if they had what it takes, but they moved forward anyway. That's what made the difference. You have that same capacity within you, the capacity to feel afraid and take action anyway. The capacity to fail and get back up. The capacity to transform your relationship with failure from one of terror to one of respect and even gratitude. When I work with people one-on-one, I often ask them to write a letter from their future self, the self who has mastered this fear, to their present self, who is just beginning the journey. These letters are always filled with compassion, wisdom, and gratitude. Compassion for the struggle, wisdom about what really matters, and gratitude for taking that first step. What would your future self, looking back on this moment from 5 years in the future, want to tell you? Perhaps something like this: "Thank you for beginning this practice, even though you weren't sure it would work. Thank you for committing to those 28 minutes, even on days when you didn't feel like it. Thank you for pushing through the discomfort, the doubt, and the old patterns that try to pull you back. Because of your courage, I now live a life beyond what you can currently imagine. A life where fear of failure no longer limits what I attempt, what I create, and who I become." The path wasn't always easy, but it was absolutely worth it, and it all began with your decision today. Will you give yourself the gift of these 28 minutes? Will you commit to this practice even when it feels uncomfortable? Will you persist even when old fears rise up to test your resolve? The choice is yours. But remember this: on the other side of your fear of failure lies everything you've ever wanted to create, experience, and become. And it's just 28 minutes away. Start today, not tomorrow. Not when you feel more ready, today. Your future self will thank you for having the courage to begin. Right now, in this moment, you stand at a crossroads. One path leads to more of the same. More hesitation, more regret, more wondering what might have been. The other path leads to transformation, to action, to growth, to the full expression of your gift potential. Choose transformation. Growth. Choose to move beyond your fear of failure. 128-minute practice at a time. Your new life is waiting, and it begins